Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to answer the question, what comes first? Where do you start? Do you start with the focal image? Do you start with the background? Do you pick the colors first? Short answer, all the above. The truth is, you do what works best for you. I kind of mix it up, but today in this video, I started with this napkin. It's called Better Together from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. Now I've used the scale of my focal image to determine what size page works best. I tested this out on my 9x12 Canson Mixed Media page, and this one is my 7x10. This is going to give me enough room to add some interesting background and maybe a sentiment. So that's what works best. But I'm starting from the napkin. Then I'm looking at the colors. We've got the blue, the green of the eyes, the burnt sienna of the one cat, and the black. So those are going to be the colors. I'm picking them out of the focal image. I'm using light blue permanent, yellow, green, and some gesso. And I'm pouring that on my palette. And then I'm going to mix them on my page with a makeup sponge. The other color I have is bright aqua. Now I want this to be modeled. I want this to add some interest even at this very first layer. Now I didn't gesso this page. Typically I do. That helps the paint blend better, but you know, I realized I didn't do this. Look at how those eyes just pop with that background. Now, if you look at the color wheel, we basically are going to be using the primary colors. There's a yellow, there's the blue, and then I'm going to be adding burnt sienna, which is reading like the red. The aqua is across the color tree from the burnt sienna. So there's a reason these colors work, and there's a reason the artist put them in the napkins. I'm testing out my focal image on the background because I want everything to work together. Once I have a good base coat down, I'm going to start adding some patterning. And I'm starting with a larger scale pattern. This is called geo-netting. And I'm going to put this in 3 places. Now I've chosen a slightly darker blue than the light blue permanent because that wasn't showing up. But again, it's a blue that is in the eyes of that one cat. Liking how that looks. Just going to add a little bit more. Now you don't have to do precise stenciling at this time. This is very forgiving. These are just 1 layers and you're going to add more. Now I'm using some stamping here with the black archival paint. This stamp, it's a texture stamp. It's from the Ocean Theme Stamperia set that I got at NINNYSNAPKINS.com. And I love the smaller scale, but I'm introducing the black because there's that one black cat in there, as well as typically I add black and white to build contrast in a page, and that leads to a successful art journal page. This stencil is called Knitted Stitching, and I'm using white here. The white is going to lighten the page somewhat, soften the edges, and again I'm layering this up. So even though I'm not putting any physical texture on this page, there's no collage papers, there's no modeling paste, because I'm layering it up one on top of the other, it's giving visual texture. So we've got pattern, we've got colors, and this is all started with the focal point. So whatever you choose, you need to make the next components and the next step work. Now there's that one cat that's orange. We are going to add some burnt sienna, and I'm going to use this circle stamp to add some patterning on there. and I'm introducing, again, those colors that are in the napkin are now part of my background. So if you don't know what colors to use, look at your focal image and work from there if you need the guideline. I'm loving how the roundness of their eyes matches the roundness of the stamping that I just did. So now I'm going to use my angle brush and black acrylic paint and edge the page. This is introducing the black. Remember, there's that black cat there, but I always edge my pages, and typically with black because quite often the sentiment is in there, and I usually add black or white and white to build contrast. So again, you want all the components to work together. So now, if I was to glue those cats on here, the background would show through. So I'm going to use some iron-on decoupage sheets. And this is the video where you can go and learn how you can make these sheets for yourself and have them in your stash to use for this purpose. I want to glue this down onto white copy paper. So I'm using these DIY iron-on decoupage sheets to simplify the process. So I've cut it off to size. I'm putting parchment paper, and then I'm using my craft iron. You can use a regular iron, just no steam, I believe. And I'm ironing it on. This is reactivating the glue that's on that sheet and getting rid of all the wrinkles. Once it's dry, I'm just going to cut it. And I'm not cutting straight. I'm getting kind of the fur feel, but you didn't need to see me cut out the whole thing. I went on and I made up some quotes or found quotes about cats. I like the one that says equal parts curiosity and chaos, and I had the one equal parts meows and mischief. And I thought I was going to combine them, curiosity, chaos, meows, and mischief. But I wanted to see at this stage, I wanted to audition where the sentiment would go before I glued those cats down. So now that I know I'm going to put the sentiment off to the right, so I haven't finally decided which one I'm going to do. I'm putting a coat of fluid matte medium on the page and then on the back of the cats. Line it up, get the final positioning, and then I'm going to put some fluid matte medium on the top. This is important because it's going to seal the napkin. I'm going to do some overpainting, and I want this to be a non-porous surface. Now here's the thing, because it is still a napkin that once it gets wet will get fragile, you need to use a brush that is soft. You need to use a brush that isn't going to tear the napkin when it gets fragile. And some napkins I find really deteriorate quickly and others do not, and you just never quite know which one it is. So exercise a bit of caution and go gentle. Now I'm cutting out, I'm what I call bubble cutting around the sentiment. I specifically do this a lot when I've got script. I like putting script fonts, at least for part of it. So I'm just, again, I'm auditioning the possibilities and then making my final decisions. I'm very visual, so I just kind of try to test the waters. When I typed out the sentiments, I typed out more than what I was going to use. What I don't use in today's art journal page will go in my stash, and I'll use it at another time. And then I'm going to glue these down with my fluid matte medium again. Equal part meows and mischief. I just absolutely love this cat napkin. It came with my Christmas stuff from Ninny's Napkins, and I just couldn't wait to use it. Do yourself a favor, clean off the excess matte medium out of your brush, then wash it. Now I'm going to soften the hard edge of the napkin or the focal image to the background, and I'm just taking some gesso and dabbing it along the edge and patting it with my finger. This softens it. It still looks like fur, and it hides that hard edge, so it doesn't look so much like you've just cut out something and glued it down onto the page. It just tricks the eye, and it gives that watercolory look. This page was a very quick art journal page. You stick to the basics. Creating is fairly easily. And again, always go back to your focal image if that's where you're starting, for the clues, for the guidance, for what you need to do or want to do. You can match shapes that are in there. You can match the colors. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So now I'm doing the same. I'm going to dab some black in there. Again, I'm making it look like watercolory look, adjusting the colors, tweaking the colors a little bit. Here I'm adding some burnt sienna and yellow oxide to the orange on this cat. Again, I just want to brighten that a little bit because I want the focal images to be the strongest colors. They need to be front and center. They need to be the most. And quite honestly, if you put some color where there was no color, nobody is going to see the art journal page and the napkin. Very rarely are you going to have those side by side. So I'm adding colors, brightening areas, adjusting colors somewhat so everything works together. I did put a wash on the eyes of the cats. Again, I want that focal image to pop. So on that top cat, I'm mixing unbleached titanium, white gesso, and gray in there, and just putting it on and just adding color. So look at your paints, and it doesn't matter if they're craft paints or acrylic. Sometimes I've used my Inktense blocks. I typically grab whatever paint medium is closest or what I can most easily match. But I like using products that are permanent when they're dry, that aren't going to reactivate. So I'm adding a little bit of white just to brighten up my cats. And then I'm painting in the whiskers of all the cats with a fine line brush. Splattering with some copper paint again to match that orange cat. And we are done. This page is done. I hope you enjoyed this page. I hope you learned a few things. Where do you start? Are you better starting with the background, or do you start with your focal image? Or maybe you start with the sentiment. Let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, go get creative.